Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am going to work on this page in my December daily album, but I want to go back in time a little bit and show you how I got to this point in the beginning. So one of the page ideas that I had, I want to let the silhouette do the work, so I'm going to set up a little cut file. The first thing I want to do is drag out a box that's the size of my Life Crafted pages, which is 5 inches by 8 1/4 inches. That gives me my page. I'm just going to fill this in so we can see what I'm doing. And cut files that are easy to fill in always involve letters, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a little quote here, my favorite one. This is actually a replica of something I've already done in a previous December daily. So I'm just writing naughty or nice, and then I'm going to select all of that. And I know that the font I want to use is Festivo Letters, number 1. And I'm going to make this a little bit larger so I can see what I'm doing. Maybe not that large. And I'm also going to make it black. There we go. So now we can see what we're working with. The other thing that I want to do is just grab my textile palette here, and I want to just make these letters a little bit closer together and make the line spacing a little bit tighter as well. The last thing I'm going to do is just center it. I know from previous experience that these words are pretty much the same length if I split it into two rows like that. So I know that that is going to be fine. The last thing I want to do is just release the compound path. Sorry, that's a mistake. I want to make the compound path. And that kind of gets rid of my text options. So you want to make sure that you've got everything the way you want it before you do that. So I'm going to combine these two pieces together to make my cut file. What I want to do though is not just cut this across. I mean, you definitely could. You could just scale this down here and cut that in and pop a photo under and your page would be done. I just want to make it a little bit more dynamic, I guess, give it a little bit of an edge, and I want to put it on an angle. So I've just angled that slightly. So it's going to be going from sort of bottom to top as it's read, and then I am going to just drag this out just until the very edges of these letters just overlap the box. And if I zoom in here a little bit so you can see, I want to be careful that all of these pieces along the edge here are still actually part of the edge. I'm going to need that for when I fill in the cut file. And then I can go back out. I can grab both of these pieces and go to my modify palette. And all I'm going to do is subtract it. And then I can go ahead and cut this. Now I do want to keep these little inside pieces. I am going to add these back in, but I can see I've got some extra little things here. That will depend entirely on what like font you've used. If I really carefully go in here, I can delete them. Otherwise, I am going to just select all of that and group it so that it's all in one place. I can align this up, add some cardstock to my cutting mat, and let the silhouette do the work. So I just cut this out of white cardstock, just a sheet of 12 by 12 white cardstock, and I'm going to really carefully lift this off my mat. It's sometimes easier to peel it backwards with the mat down, but sometimes you need to get your fingers in there, especially for these little, the little pieces on here. So the middle of the A's and the O's and whatnot, I want to keep those so that when I've filled in my cut file, I can add those back in. So I'm just leaving everything else stuck to the mat for now, and that way I'm not going to disappear anything while I'm working with all these little bits of paper. Now I've pulled out a whole bunch of scrappy little pieces. I've got heaps of 6x8 papers sitting there, but I'm gonna just use up a few of these scrap pieces first before I start cutting into any whole sheets. And I have got a lot of kind of pink and red kind of colors going on here, but I do want to break those up a little bit with some just some teal, just to stop it becoming too monochromatic. So each pattern of paper that I'm using, I'm going to try and use twice. I think I calculated that I should have enough letters to be able to do that. And so I am adding one piece to the sort of top line and one piece to the bottom, being moderately careful not to have them sitting on top of each other. So just trying to distribute those colors. So you can see it doesn't take too long, but I guess I probably was a little bit optimistic saying that the silhouette was going to do all of the work for me, because I still have to spend my time filling in these cut files. It really isn't that hard though. You can see I'm not doing too much in the way of like complicated cutting. I'm just cutting out little rough rectangles that kind of fit the shape, and then I'm adhering them down with some smart glue from scrapbook.com. And it dries really quickly, so it makes this process really easy, especially because I'm not actually doing any sort of complicated cutting. I don't need to trace anything, or it's very easy. This is a very easy kind of cut file to fill in, which is exactly what I wanted. Now these kind of edgy pieces, I am overhanging the pattern paper off the edge of the cut file, and then I can go ahead and just trim that down just with my scissors. And that's what I meant about making sure that those edges were all intact. It makes it really easy just to do one cut with the scissors straight down to get that straight edge back again. I'm not having to sort of work out where things go. It just would be a little bit messier otherwise. You can see it didn't take that long. I'm onto the last two letters as it is. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. There's that very sort of little piece around the question mark, and the smart glue works really well for that. It's got a very thin, small nozzle on it, which makes it easier to add this piece in. Now when I'm adding my centers back into the letters, I use the entire shape first, add a little bit of adhesive into the middle, and then add the middle piece, and then I can peel the letter back out, and that way I am sure that that inside bit of the letter is in the perfect place. That is my cut file all done. So here we are back in the present. I finally managed to find a photo that I thought worked really nicely with this little quote. See, I knew it would be a quote that I'd be able to use, naughty or nice. I got a photo of me, my sister, and Jack, and it worked perfectly. The colors were perfect for the papers that I've already used. I just kind of have this like big white space next to this really bright photo, and I want a way to be able to tie those two things together a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the angle that I've put that cut file on, and I'm going to use that to overlap both pages with some pattern paper. This is also going to give me an opportunity to add some journaling in here as well. Given that the cut file was on the angle, I was a little bit unsure of where I would put that journaling, whether it was going to be straight or whether I should handwrite it. This way here, I am going to end up with the perfect little spot to do that. Now I used a full-size sheet. I've got the 12 by 12 paper pad of Hey Santa as well as some of those smaller pieces because I do want this paper to overlap both sides, and the 8 inches of the smaller papers wasn't going to be enough to do that. So here's where I'm looking at having things go. So I've got my pattern paper down the bottom, and I'm going to add a piece of vellum. So I'm just lining up the vellum so that it's on the same angle as my title there, the cut file. And then I'm just using a pencil. I'm going to trace the sort of edges of where my typing is going to go. And then I can go ahead and just run that vellum through my typewriter, adding my journaling, making sure that the lines of journaling that I'm typing aren't any longer than those pencil marks. I'm actually going to end up with 2 pieces because I'm going to add one under the title here, and I am going to add a similar piece onto the photo side. So what that achieves is kind of tying those 2 pages together, but I'm not covering up so much of that photo. You're going to be able to see through the vellum. It's going to be really easy to see the photo behind it, but having that overlapping pattern paper and the overlapping vellum is going to help the whole page feel a little bit more cohesive. So I've trimmed down my journaling and I just measured how tall I made that strip, and then I cut the exact same size of a plain piece of vellum. And then I'm going to work out where I want to put my journaling. So I'm being careful to put it on the same angle. And what I'm trying to avoid is having any of that journaling overhanging those holes that I've already punched in the card. I'm going to adhere that with a little bit of washi tape just temporarily, and then I'm going to line up the same piece of vellum on the other side, and then I'm going to use my sewing machine and I'm going to stitch along the top of that vellum. That's going to adhere the top of that. I can go ahead and just trim it down with my scissors along the edge of my photo and the edge of this cut file page. And then I can remove the washi tape. And then what I'm going to do is grab that strip of pattern paper, and I have been careful to choose one of the patterns that is in my backing of the cut file. So I ended up using that kind of green grid. Rather than the pinks or the reds, it's going to tie the green of the photo in a little bit more as well, make it a little bit less pink and red and a little bit more green. I did trim down that strip because I didn't need it quite as high as I had it. What I'm going to do is just line it up, and I'm going to use the entire 12-inch sheet this time so that the patterns match in the middle. So I'm carefully taping those in place, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that over to my sewing machine and stitch all the way along the top. There you go. That's an easier way to see where I've stitched it. That stitches down the pattern paper. It also stitches down the piece of vellum that's underneath the pattern paper. So the vellum is completely adhered now, no glue marks at all. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just going to trim around the edge, just using the back of my photo and paper there to get a nice clean mark. And then all I've got left to do is just adhere the bottom of that pattern paper. So I'm just going to lift it, and I'm going to add a little bit of that smart glue, especially around the holes, and just a little line around the bottom and the edge that lifts up. And the same on this side. It only needs a teeny tiny little bit because there's only a little bit of pattern paper there. And that will adhere really quickly. That glue does dry really quick. And that's pretty much my page done. I'm going to add the tiniest little bit of embellishment, not too much, because it is quite a busy photo and I've got the sort of busy cut file title there. I'm just going to add a couple of little puffy stickers, again from the Hey Santa collection, as soon as I've repunched those holes, because I realized that the vellum and the pattern paper was covering up those holes. So I've got everything repunched, and I'm just going to add a few little stickers. So I did grab the Santa sticker because, to be honest, he looks a little bit naughty, this Santa, so I figured it worked really nicely. And there's a kind of gap in between "or nice" down the bottom here, so I'm just trying to line him up so that it looks like he's walking up the edge of my journaling and his head's sticking nicely into that little hole. I also wanted to add the Christmas tree because we are standing in front of a balloon Christmas tree. And then I'm going to add one more little bow puffy sticker onto the top of my title. And I'm going totally against the grain here. I want to add something that's not pink or teal, and I'm going to end up adding this little yellow one to tie in a few of those yellow and gold bows that's over on the left-hand side on my photo. And that's it. That's this page all done. I'm so happy that I got this photo in here, and honestly, I didn't know this was the photo I was going to use, but could that title be any more perfect for these cheeky little faces? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.